Hi everyone, Gunjan this side, and to, in this talk we are going to talk about what next is coming up in with the .NET. So earlier we discussed about a lot of stuff around how what is .NET Core all about, how it evolved, when it came, how it came, and the another question that comes to everyone's mind is what is the next thing that .NET is coming up with? Well, fortunately, this time we have an answer for that, and the answer is .NET 5 and C Sharp 9. So let's see some of the features and functionalities that are coming up with .NET 5 first. So .NET 5 is going to be a unified platform wherein the idea is to create a platform that can support, that can provide support for all modern .NET code. So whether you are at the verge of developing an application for web, or you are developing a Windows application, or you're into mobile development or gaming, all that you need is to have .NET 5. So that's the idea. Now, at this point, I would also want to talk about what happened to .NET Core 4X series. So this is essentially the next release of .NET Core framework itself. Now, when we say that it's .NET 5, then where did .NET Core 4 went? Well, they skipped the .NET Core 4 has been skipped completely, and there's a major reason for that. The reason is the popularity of .NET Framework 4.x series within the community. So this is the opportunity that has been taken to communicate that .NET 5 is the future of .NET platform. And as it's been stressed a lot that .NET 5 is the next release of .NET Core after .NET Core 3.x. Well, as a dev, I think that this is the next release for .NET Framework itself. So we will see that in future how that's happening. But going forward, all the enhancements and modifications will be made to this. So the idea behind having .NET 5 is to have one single base class library based framework which can handle all kind of app models, whether it's for .NET Core, for WebASP.NET, WinForms, WPF, or you're into development for mobile development using Xamarin. If you're into AI development, for which there is an already API available, which is ML.NET, or you're into cloud development. For everything, all that you need going forward would be .NET 5, which will support all of these app models via single base class library. The other question that might come to everyone's mind should be that with the with one huge base class library based framework, are we going back to what Microsoft tried to achieve with .NET Framework? So if we see .NET Old, there also we had a runtime and we had a base class library which could support your WinForms, WPF, Silverlight, ASP.NET and everything. So are we going back in the same direction? Well, the answer for that question is no, because the newer framework is more modular and allows for a smaller footprint of your runtime. So as you can see with .NET Framework versions, earlier versions, if you had to download it, you had to had one runtime and one developer pack, and this runtime was quite heavy. But with the .NET Core, with the .NET Core and with .NET 5 also, you will have the possibility to have smaller footprints of your runtime based on the kind of applications that you're trying to develop, with the SDK supporting all of the runtimes. And the NuGet pluggable feature that was available in .NET Core would still be available with us. With this, let's talk about the .NET 5 focus areas. So the focus areas for .NET 5 framework are that they want to, that the idea is to come up with a single .NET runtime and framework that will have uniform runtime behavior and experiences. So the idea is to have the same look and feel for your project files and your code files, no matter which type of application you're trying to build. And also to expand the capabilities of .NET by taking the best of .NET Core, .NET Framework, and Mono. With this, there's one more focus area, which is about having single code base that can be used, improved, and expanded by the community. So they have also tried to merge their GitHub repositories, which were scattered all around. So earlier they had repositories for .NET Core CLR, Core RT, and Core FX, and now that's all been clubbed to be part of .NET platform. And also they had separate repos for their toolset, SDK, and CLI, which is going to be part of .NET SDK itself. So you can go to those repositories, track the changes, look for the discussions, and even contribute. So if we go ahead and see the roadmap of the .NET, then earlier there was .NET Framework with its own runtime and base class library, .NET Core, and Xamarin. And then came in .NET Core to club the features of .NET Framework and some features of the Mono as well. And now .NET 5 is coming up with the runtime that will, with the runtime having choices and a single base class library. Now they say, as I said earlier, that .NET 5, they say, is the next release for .NET Core. But as you can see, .NET Standard was being supported for .NET Framework as well. With .NET Framework 4.8, the support for .NET Standard library did came into picture. So the base has already been set up. They have been setting up this base with .NET Standard since quite a long time, and now that base is ready to be consumed, and therefore there comes .NET 5, which will have .NET Standard as the base, for which would comprise of the APIs that would be consistent and workable across all the platforms. So the new features that are coming up with .NET 5 are more choices on runtime experiences, CoreFX to extend support for static compilation, that is ahead of time compilation, which would essentially allow to have smaller footprints of the runtime and support for more operating systems. Availability of language interoperability on various platforms, language interoperability for Java, Object-C, and Swift. Let's talk about the runtime experiences that are that the .NET 5 is coming up with. So with this, .NET 5 is going to have two major runtimes. One is Core CLR and Mono, and the idea is to make them drop-in replacements for one another. So there are two major runtime supports. One is Mono and another one is Core CLR. So in .NET 5, default runtime is going to be Core CLR, which is just-in-time based. And for few specific type of applications, say the applications that are used that are for iOS and the Blazor WebAssembly applications, Mono would be used as the runtime since it requires ahead of time compilation. With this in place, high throughput and productivity is achieved in .NET 5 via having lot of improvements in Core CLR, that is in JIT. Few of the improvements are improvements in garbage collector, improvement in tire compilation, and other code quality improvements. If we talk about the improvements in garbage collector, then they have introduced there has been introduced a form of work stealing for the marking phase of garbage collector. So currently in server-side garbage collector, per thread, one thread is for per core, which does the job of marking. So the garbage collection is done via tracking the objects with the help of a chaining method, wherein we start from a known object, known node, and we keep on tracking the nodes which are coming down the lane via a marking phase. And the nodes which are not reachable, they are marked as they are treated as unreachable and are garbage collected by the collector. But since one thread is executed per thread, per core, the marking phase, if that thread completes its marking phase, then now it can steal the work from the other thread to complete the marking phase more quickly, so that the entire garbage collection can be done more quickly. Earlier, this was not possible. So this is one improvement. Another improvement is in tired compilation, wherein the call counting mechanism has been improved for better startup time and steady state performance. You can read about tired compilation more from the link that I'll probably be sharing in the chat. There are other code quality improvements such as char to upper invariant and lower invariant has been improved. There are improvements in system.text.json, and there are nullable annotations that are being most of the assemblies are now annotated for checking for the reference type null checks. Earlier, it was covered for 40% of the assemblies, but now it is said that it is being covered for 80% of the assemblies. Apart from that, there'd be fast startup, smaller footprint, and lower memory usage with the help of Mono runtime, which provides AOT compilation, that is ahead of time compilation. So the key capability and outcome for Mono is AOT compiler, which enables the .NET code to be built in single native code executable that can run on a machine. These AOT compiled apps can run efficiently in small places and trade throughput for startup time. Although this trade-off is very less, but it's still there for some cases. Now there are two kind of solutions for AOT. One is the solution where we need 100% AOT compilation, and the another one is where most of your code parts are AOT compiled, but there are few cases which are not very AOT friendly, wherein we can use the JIT compilation if JIT is available. Since with .NET Framework, JIT would be available, Mono would be able to take the advantage of that capability. And with that, your WebAssembly projects and your iOS projects would be more faster. So in .NET 5, AOT compilation would be used for iOS and WebAssembly projects for sure, which require Mono runtime. And this would be an option for applications that are more appliance right, which require fast startup and a smaller footprint. In those cases also, we can switch to Mono runtime and make use of the AOT compilation. And there are plans to improve Mono AOT compiler for better startup and size reduction. Although there are very good features that are coming up with .NET 5, but there are few features that were available in .NET Framework which are going to be left behind. Some of them are ASP.NET Web Forms, ASMX Web Services, WCF, uh, and WWF. Also, ASP.NET Web API is not going to be part of .NET 5 directly, and these features will now be merged into ASP.NET MVC framework. Earlier, these two frameworks were separate, but now all the capabilities of ASP.NET Web API are going to be merged in ASP.NET MVC. Also, let's take the opportunity to talk about the support for .NET Framework. So, as it is being stressed enormously that .NET Framework 4.8 is the last release for .NET Framework series. There are no major releases that are being forecasted or the community can foresee for the .NET Framework series. But the support for the framework would still be there, and we might experience few minor releases for the framework, taking care of the bug fixes and enhancements, but there will be no major releases for .NET Framework. So the proposition is to start moving your applications from .NET Framework to at least .NET Core 3.x series. And post that, the migration from .NET Core 3.x series to .NET 5 is fairly simple. Uh, there might be few breaking changes that would affect that might affect the applications that are currently running on .NET Framework, but the support would still be there, and trying to migrate from going away from .NET Framework would help. There are 8 preview releases of the .NET 5 that are already available, and gist of these features can be found here, and I'll be sharing the links again. And also the release plan of .NET 5 .NET has been changed now. Now for every even year, the releases that would be coming up would be for general availability, and the long-term support releases would be available in odd years. So the .NET 5 release, which is going to happen in November 2020, is a general availability release, and its long-term support is not guaranteed. The long-term support for the release of for .NET Framework would come up in 2021 with .NET 6. the key takeaways for .NET for knowing of what is going to come up with .NET 5 is that going in going future, you will see unified SDK features with .NET, wherein you will have a single base class library for almost all the applications that might run on almost all platforms with the integrated support of Xamarin. That means mobile feature would be pretty much be a standard feature now. Also, there'd be support for cloud native applications and the tools and APIs for supporting Azure app development would be supported with .NET 5, and web apps and native application support will be there for all platforms. For web apps, a single Blazor project can support an app and make it work in your browser, in your mobile, or as a desktop native app with the help of the same project files and code base using the same base class library. With that, let's move on to look for the features that are coming up with C# 9. Here also, earlier the releases for the language used to happen after 2 years or 3 years. But after releasing C# 8 in September 2019, there's a new release right after a year, which is C# 9. So there is a shift of ideology from trying to ship a big release of changes with a newer version to shipping few major features of a language with smaller releases. So with C# 9, there are no very major and big changes that we are foreseeing, but there are few major features that we'll experience in C# 9, and we'll probably see more frequent releases of the C# language also with few major features in every release. This time, the one main feature that the language has come up with is the brief and immutable representation of the referenced object types. So with this, they have come up with immutable properties, immutable objects, which are now called records. And we can discuss why records, not structs. And there are few pattern matching improvements, and there are other features that we might that are coming up in C# 9. So let's talk about immutable object properties. So with the current uh, properties, in order for setters of the current properties to work, the object initializers, in order for object initializers to work with the setters, the objects have to be made mutable. That's the current limitation. So essentially the setters in the properties work by first calling the parameterless default constructor of the object and then calling the setter method on those properties. This allows for the properties to be mutable. And in order to make them immutable, there's a lot of boilerplate code that we have to write in the current language. With the init accessor, this limitation is going away, and it is nothing but a variant of set accessor, which can be called only during the object initialization. Any subsequent assignment to the properties marked with init accessor would be a compile time error. And just like we could initialize read-only properties with these setters, we can initialize the read-only properties inside the init blocks as well. But any assignment post the object initialization for the init properties would be a compile time error. So as we can see here, for the in the person class, for first name property, we have an init accessor, and for these we can only initialize these properties when we are actually creating the object. Any assignment to these properties post the creation of the object would result in an error. Just the way they have come up, just the way the language has come up with immutable properties, there's a way of having immutable data objects. So the only the only keyword that you have to use instead of class is now a record. A record would mark your property, record would mark your properties as immutable and your object as immutable, and you cannot change the state of this object once this object is initialized. So basically, these records are seen not by their identity but by their contents. And under the hood, they are reference types, but they behave like value types. And this is the shorthand notation that records with which records can be created. So this is essentially same. This is essentially same as writing this. So if you write shorthand notation with record person, string name, and init age, this is same as writing record person with public properties using init setter. Now, since records are immutable, how can we change the state of the records essentially? For that, we have with expressions. So since these are immutable objects, every time we want to change the state, we will have to come up with a new instance of the records. But with that, we do not want to get into the complexities of writing the of copying the same the values for the properties manually. For that exists with expressions. So this every record internally has a protected copy constructor, which is called when we use this with expression. So it essentially calls a copy constructor on this person and copies all the properties which are not part of this with expression to the new object. And once that happens, the expression that is there within the with expression is changes the value during the initialization itself. So if I'll see another person, then we'll see its first name as Ahmed, but last name as Ali instead of Yusuf. Also, with records, the equality works similar to how it works for struct, with a difference of having reference equals. So all the records internally override the equals method to compare the values of the properties instead of the reference, and reference equals compares the reference of the records. So as you can see, for a person object with first name Ahmed and last name Yusuf, and for another person object using with operator having last name Yusuf itself, if I say person equals another person, will return true because all the values are same. But if I create a new person with last name a changed value and compare this with person object, then this would return me false because the values are now different, and the reference equals will also return false. Now, the obvious question that might come to everyone's mind is why records and not structs? Structs are essentially the value types, right? So they are immutable. Why couldn't we enhance them? Well, there are few caveats in these structs, and there are uh, few improvisations that records provide which structs don't. So the idea is to have an easy and simplified construct to express the immutability of the data types. So with structs, it could be accomplished, but there would be a lot of boilerplate code that one might need to write. So with records, they provide an easy and simplified construct like with expression for creating the instances. They have robust equality support. So also records provide inheritance much similar to how inheritance is achieved with classes. So a record can inherit only from another record, not from a class, but the inheritance works well with using with expression. And for equality, every equality with equality, there is a uh, equality contract that records maintain to check for the contract of the two objects that are in comparison. If that doesn't match, then the equality would always return false because either the properties types doesn't match, or their name doesn't match, or the values doesn't match. So that way it provides robust equality support. There is a constructor deconstructor support with simplified positional records, which is missing in struct. And since records are the reference types, they require less memory allocation than structs because they are under the hood compiled as reference types. And reference equals also works well with records as opposed to struct, which will always return false. The other feature that C# language, C# 9 is going to provide is improved pattern matching. Earlier, in a switch for a default case, we had to provide a discard operator. That is not needed anymore. It can be identified with the help of a type with no expression that this is the default case. Also, there are the language introduces relational patterns and logical patterns, wherein now your pattern matching can include relational operators like greater than equal to, less than equal to, and greater than and less than. And similarly, the language now provides support for having logical patterns like and, or, not, and whatnot. So these are the improved pattern matching features. There are few other nice features that you might want to go through, which the language supports. Some of them are top level programs, targeted typed improvements, and covariant returns. So with top level programs now, instead of writing your main class with public static void main, you could simply write the statements right after the using statement without even specifying the namespace. This is allowed only in one class, which would be treated as the entry point of your application. With that, it makes it easier to write the basic code for the people, for the beginners, for the people who are starting with the C# language. This is one very nice feature. And then there are target typed improvements and covariant returns, which you can probably go through. And now they're allowing attributes to be placed on function parameters, that is the local functions also. So that is one thing. The restrictions that we had for writing partial methods are now going away, and you can get rid of restrictions of having partial methods to have return type as void, and they should have implementation. And there are other things that were restricting partial methods. They are now going away. And there are a lot of other features that you can go through. You can find the full feature set in this link. I think that's it from the new features that are coming up with .NET 5 and C# 9. So thank you everyone, and hope that .NET with .NET 5 and C# 9 .NET Word rocks. Thank you.